I'm now middle-aged as they speak, but at one point I realized that living with a woman for the rest of life was a real challenge. It would be more accurate to say that a woman is afraid to marry because she scares my stepmother to favor his husband terribly, but my stepmother, who gives me hints and tries to connect with me behind my father's back, surprisingly is my partner, although legally she is my father's wife. To be more frank, I gave up marriage due to my stepmother. My stepmother is over 60, but she still plays the role of my woman. After confirming that my father has fallen asleep, my stepmother, who rushes to my room and urges me to quickly get things done, was only living nominally as a couple with my weary and elderly father. The role of a real husband was something I had to fulfill. My father has been frail since his youth, and I knew he was not destined for a long life. There was a time when I thought of my stepmother as merely the one who would take care of my father's sickness. My biological mother passed away in an unexpected accident. When I was in the upper grades of elementary school, I lost my mother at a young age, and the sense of loss and sadness was overwhelming. After my mother passed away, my relatives started urging my father to remarry in a hurry. The adult relatives told me, who was still in my early teens, that it was my duty as a child to convince my father to remarry. Since my father was immersed in work due to his weak health, I had to take care of all things such as chores and studies by myself. If I didn't do the housework, my father, who was tired all day from work, had to do it when he came home. My father, who always lacked energy and easily felt fatigue, never left work on time. I didn't want to bother him with chores when he came home. It seems I was maturing. After enrolling in college and experiencing campus life for a year, like most men, I enlisted in the military. Although I was worried about my frail father, I decided it would be better to experience military life while I was still young. The first time I became aware of my stepmother's existence was during my time in the military. When I was a private in the military, on a certain Sunday morning, I was told someone had come to visit. Hurrying out to see who it might be, I made my way to the infirmary. My father was there, with a woman standing next to him. My father introduced her to me as his companion, and she greeted me with a warm smile. It was surprising to see my father, who had been unresponsive to suggestions of remarrying, arrive with a young woman without a word of explanation. My father suggested we go out, and I followed his lead. In the 80s, when I was serving in the military, we were told to always answer yes, I am enjoying it if someone asked us how we were doing. I responded with a loud yes, I understand, and got into my father's car parked in the guardhouse parking lot. My father bought my favorite chicken stew and told me to call the woman who came with him mother. The woman, who spoke with a bright smile in this incomprehensible situation, said, I am young and lacking in many ways, but I promise to take good care of your father, so please bear with me. Despite her innocent appearance, her gaze was sparkling and her tone was refreshing. I asked her, can I really call you mother? And she responded with a bright smile, are you really accepting me as your mother? Her teeth were so white and beautiful. My stepmother, who had formed a new family, seemed to make a lot of effort to win my favor, as I was my father's only child. I accepted my stepmother as my mother, and thought I should be good to my stepmother in the future. After the first visit with my stepmother, my father often came to visit. When I came back from the visit, the expressions of my comrades in the living quarters changed. It was because my stepmother had brought an enormous amount of snacks for us to share. After my discharge from the military, I returned to university. However, the 80s were filled with endless demonstrations, and it was impossible to have proper classes. I didn't participate in the demonstrations with my classmates and was busy going home. My university peers called me a coward for not joining the fight. but I didn't pay attention to such criticism. Not demonstrating was my free will. When I arrived home and rang the bell, my stepmother always greeted me with a smile. After dinner, I studied while my stepmother did the housework. At that time, whenever there was a problem in my father's company, he would go to the overseer's branch to resolve it. In an era when hardly anyone from school had traveled abroad, the fact that my father was going abroad was a testament to his capabilities and his high standing in the company. Thanks to this, our household was quite well off. The day that incident happened, I arrived home and my stepmother greeted me warmly. "Your father had to go on a sudden long-term business trip today. He came home, quickly packed his things, and left. I didn't think much of it since my father was always busy." After dinner, I felt a bit bored and was looking at old photo albums. My stepmother asked, "Son, can I have a drink with you tonight?" I replied, "You drink, mother? I had no that is." My stepmother didn't say anything, but simply showed her upper 4 teeth and smiled. She always called me son instead of just calling me by my name. I felt like I understood her feelings. It seemed like she attached a lot of significance to our relationship as mother and son. My stepmother and I had a light drink together. At that time, soju was a bit stronger than it is now. We had some liquor at home, but my stepmother knew I preferred soju, so she seemed to have bought some in advance. She asked me with a curious expression how my classes were going with the relentless protests, how I was getting along with my friends, and I answered her questions as I drank. My stepmother turned out to be a lightweight drinker. After just 2 shots of soju, her face turned red as a beet, and even her eyes were bloodshot. She quickly became incoherent and disoriented, and as she called me son, she suggested we look at the photo album together. She pinched my cheek as she marveled at my cute childhood pictures, saying she had never seen such a cute child before, and draped her arm over my shoulder. I was in my mid-20s, and I found myself reacting strongly to my stepmother, showing interest in even my childhood pictures. Embarrassed, I went to the bathroom to calm down. It was a hot summer night and we had all the windows open because of the heat. I was hot from the soju, and having my young and beautiful stepmother so close to me, looking at the album was too much to bear. As we looked at the album together, my stepmother shed tears, saying what a shame it was for my biological mother to leave the world and leave behind such a good and handsome son. I started to feel different feelings for my stepmother, who was like this. As if reading my heart, my stepmother asked, "Son, do you still only see me as your mother?" I shook my head. My stepmother looked at me intently, and I felt as if she was asking for something. I read her gaze, quickly pulled my stepmother into my arms, and went to my room. We had a great time all night. Until then, I had been a bachelor. I had truly become an adult from a child's level. My stepmother asked if I had never properly dated a woman, to which I shyly nodded. Then I told her that when she came to visit me at the military, I was so taken aback by her beauty that I almost screamed. I hugged my stepmother once again. After making love 3 times, we fell asleep in the same bed. When I felt the urge to use the bathroom in the early morning, my stepmother woke up at the sound. We made love once more. She told me that she had often felt resentful toward my father during their marriage. My stepmother had shared a bed with my father, but the number of times they had been intimate after remarrying could be counted on one hand. My father was always tired, as I had feared, and with lots of work and constant late nights, plus frequent overseas business trips, she felt very lonely as a woman. Now we could freely discuss sex, but back then, how many wives could ask their husbands to be more intimate? After that day, I shared a room with my stepmother. When we were intimate, she asked me to call her by her name. When I would call her Christina, she was overjoyed. At first, I was inexperienced and finished quickly. But as the number of times we were intimate increased, my skills improved. My stepmother told me that I was becoming a real man, and she patted me on the back, saying I was awesome. My father came home after finishing his overseas business trip, and after confirming that he was sound asleep. She came to my room and we made love. Thus, times changed. My stepmother was usually very modest and only knew about housework, but when we were intimate, she was truly active. My father, who was always engrossed in work, has been retired for a while. Unfortunately, my father's health is not as good as it used to be. If his health worsens, he has asked us to send him to a nursing home, instead of struggling to take care of him at home. My stepmother said we should stick together until the end, asking how we could talk about such things given our relationship. I thought to myself that I wouldn't be interested in any other woman, only my stepmother, and I would be with her. When my father goes to heaven, I plan to live with my stepmother.